known worldwide, and is losing advertising by the fist, and also the Tesla shares have gone down. X, Twitter.
The primary carrier of news in the world.
The primary carrier of what news in the world?
Just news, information.
News, disinformation.
It's the premier social media
but it's
site.
Not. But
he hasn't broken it.
He has broken it.
No, he hasn't.
He has broken
it. No, he hasn't.
He has broken it.
That's a liberal delusion.
No, it is not. And what kind of news is on there? Unfounded and unchecked delusional
Right, stick with Petrie for her left-wing show. That will go on from 10 p.m. until 1.
Just because I'm not right-wing.
Centrist show. I'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Listen to her if you must.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very, very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you. Cleaned the studio down after right-wing. I'm not left-wing. I'm not. I'm just not right-wing. And if that makes me left-wing, then in your view, then I don't know what I can say to you. But listen, I want to talk to you at midnight coming up. No politics at midnight. What I want to talk to you about at midnight is that it is World Cancer Day today. So I want to talk to you about really your journey with this hideous disease. What happened to you when you were told, one of the 1,000 people a day in this country are told that they have cancer? How did you react to that? How has the NHS reacted to that? How was your journey? Because we don't fare very well in terms of cancer treatment in this country when compared to the rest of to the EU. We do compare pretty well to a lot of other countries in terms of outcome with cancer. But I want to hear from you, seeing as it is World Cancer Day. There are some great things going on with cancer. There are great, you know, we might be on the verge of, if not being cured of some cancers, but being able to live with cancers with the right treatments. And it is progressing at a pace. So I was just interested in what it's like here. What is it like? What support do you get? Did you get enough support from the company that you work for? Did you get enough support from your family? I hear a lot of stories about women who get breast cancer who very rarely manage to stay married to the man that they were with when they were diagnosed. I find that quite shocking. But a lot of marriages break down over cancer, a lot of breast cancer people, women who get breast cancer. And I know men get breast cancer as well, but it is at a much smaller rate. But look, I want to talk to you about how it is that we deal in this country with cancer from people who have lived through it. And this is kind of a nod from me to all of you who have been diagnosed, who have survived, who have gone through this journey, which is not one that anybody ever wants to go through. There's also a rise in young people getting certain cancers as well, and what do we put that down to? So really just a nod, an appreciation and some support for those people on World Cancer Day who are going through that hideous disease. So I would love to hear from you, and if you could just tell me your journey, what it's been like, how you've managed so far, where the support came from, who was your best support, what was your treatment like, what was the NHS like, what was social services like, what were your employers like, your family, friends, all of those things. I'd like to hear from you, good or bad. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can text as well, the word talk and your message to 87222. So that's coming up at midnight. That is your phone-in hour. That's when I get to hear your voices. Well, between 11 and 12, Sam Fowles, the barrister and commentator, is in the studio to go through the newspapers for tomorrow. We're also going to be looking at a few American front pages as well, because there's so much going on in the US, and I'm not sure we're getting all of the information, so I just thought we'd have a look at a few American front pages as well to see what's happening there. We have Johnny Hearn, our filmmaker, who's going to be talking us through some films that you might want to watch if you want to just get away from politics for a while. And Phil Dave will be talking to us about self-healing roads. Yep, you heard me. Self-healing roads, and AI now learning to replicate itself. That's not scary, is it? So we'll be looking into that as well. But first, as I was shouting at Kevin about, or he was shouting at me, I can't remember which way around it was. We are very good friends, by the way. There's no fallout here. I want to talk about the oligarchs, those billionaires that are surrounding the president, the 47th president of the United States. And some of his picks as well seem to be completely random. Many of them come from, I don't know if you've heard of Project 2025, but many of the people he's put in place are authors of that project or are involved in putting that project together, and they are now in really quite serious government positions. And I want to talk to you about what is going on. But look, I also want you to hear this, right, from America itself, and to hear the worry and the concern that there is at the moment at Elon Musk, who is unelected, working in a department that doesn't officially exist, called DOGE, or as I'm going to call it, DOGE, and having the power to avail himself of people's private information in the United States. For me, it's extraordinary. Have a listen. This is Chuck Schumer.
before our very eyes, an unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government. Last Friday, DOGE forcefully gained access to the Treasury Department's payment systems and to the most sensitive information of virtually every U.S. citizen. Donald Trump basically handed DOGE the Social Security data of virtually every American citizen. Donald Trump gave DOGE access to America's personal tax refund data. He gave DOGE access to people's Medicare and Medicaid benefits, disability payment data, veteran benefit data. Worst of all, we don't know what DOGE intends to do with this information. If you want to know how an unelected shadow government operates, look no further than DOGE. DOGE staffers, whomever they are, now have unprecedented access to the most sensitive payment data in the entire federal government, with no transparency, with no guardrails, and guess what? The one independent watchdog who could have provided oversight was fired by Donald Trump over a week ago. The Treasury Secretary must revoke DOGE's access to the Treasury payment system at once. If not, Congress must act immediately. That is why Leader Jeffries and I are working together on legislation, which we will introduce, to stop unlawful meddling in the Treasury Department's payment systems. We must protect people's Social Security payments, their Medicare payments, tax refunds from any possible tampering by DOGE or any other unauthorized entities. Let's be very clear. DOGE is not a real government agency.
There you go. As I said, it is not a real government agency. It does not have the support of Congress. It has not been formed by Congress. It has not had the powers given to it. DOGE is just Elon Musk. So is that something to fear? Or, because he's such a brilliant businessman, is this something to be applauded? Let's talk to Seamus Bruner now, Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute and author of one of my favourite books. I've said this to you before. I love it and hate it in equal measure because I throw it across the room and the cat gets hit sometimes. Control Oligarchs, exposing the billionaire class, their secret deals and the globalist plot to dominate your life. Seamus, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me again. Look, reading Control Oligarchs, it seems a little out of date now. I mean, even you, right, with all of your knowledge, experience, expertise and research, are you shocked by what we're seeing?
Yeah, Petrie, it's great to be with you. I am shocked, frankly. I spilled a lot of ink on Elon Musk in this book. There are great reasons to worry about Elon Musk's influence over the Trump administration. I mean, the transhumanism section in the book talking about the Neuralink. I mean, anybody who wants to put a chip in my brain is someone I'm wary of. And of course, there's all kinds of other reasons. The number of government contracts. I mean, most of Elon Musk's businesses are fully or at least partially dependent on government contracts. And so, this is the kind of crony relationships that we at the Government Accountability Institute like to expose. There's other reasons, too. Elon Musk has a large amount of business dealings with China. His business in China is totally beholden to favor with the Chinese Communist Party. And yet, with all of that said, and those are, I mean, we could spend hours talking about each of those issues. I will say that the DOGE initiative, the Department of Government Efficiency, and you're right, it is not an official department of the government. It has not been authorized by Congress. I do find at least part of the impetus for DOGE to be to have merit. There's a saying in the United States: a government big enough to give you everything you have is large enough to take everything you want. So it's misattributed to Thomas Jefferson, but our government has grown so out of control. There's so much waste and fraud and abuse in our government. We saw it with the COVID spending. I mean, trillions of dollars of fraud happening all the time. You know, this U.S. Agency for International Development, of course, it certainly does some good things, but we've seen so much waste and fraud and abuse with that particular agency, and a lot of regime change and these color revolutions in funding other control oligarch businesses. They fund Rockefeller initiatives and they fund George Soros initiatives. So I do applaud some of the work of USAID. And when Chuck Schumer talks about they have you know, all of this sensitive information, that's what we're talking about with a government get big enough to give you everything you want. It's like the government has all of that. Do you know how many bureaucrats have access to that? Tons and tons of bureaucrats. So if DOGE does something wrong, if they improperly access people's personnel data and they leak it and they do something wrong with that, or he mentioned tax return information, then I will condemn that, and a full investigation, I'm sure, will be had. I'm sure many senators are gearing up to investigate now. But if DOGE is able to cut some of this waste and fraud and abuse, I can't see how that's a bad thing.
I don't have a problem. We've got waste here. We had a lot of fraud during COVID as well. I think what troubles me is the lack of oversight, that you've got people who are 19 to 24 years old as members of DOGE who are given access to stuff that it is at a securer level than they can't even probably spell it yet, and they're getting in there, and you're hoping, it's just like fingers crossed that they don't do anything bad. And the other thing that is concerning, surely from a security point of view, is how many firewalls have they knocked down? How many access points are now available to Russia, China, with all of this information? There's no oversight, and there's no oversight because Donald Trump has sacked anybody who could oversee this. And why hasn't it gone to a proper department if there's nothing to hide?
Yeah, those are legitimate concerns. I would say that the OPM, this is what he's talking about when he talks about the Treasury, the Office of Personnel Management that manages all of the federal employees in our country. China's been in that system for years. I mean, they hacked it years and years ago, and they've been repeatedly, it seems like every other year, there's another story about how our OPM system was hacked by China, and all of the personnel records are in China's hands. I'm not saying that I'm obviously not saying that's a good thing, but at the same time, it has been an abject failure. The federal government in our country has been a failure for a very long time, wasting tremendous amounts of money. And so, again, you can read control oligarchs, and I do not take a kind tone toward Elon Musk, and I have all kinds of reasons to be wary of him. But I'll give you a different example. The takeover of Twitter, when he did that, he fired a third or even half of the staff, and the company's never been run better. The user engagement is up, whether or not you think that that's a good thing. I mean, by the metrics of a social media company, it's never been more profitable, more lean and efficient. So those are some of the things that I sort of support.
But it depends on what you see as success, right, with Twitter. I mean, or with X or Twitter. Look, with Musk, what's in it for him? He's not doing this for nothing, right? None of them are. Bezos, Zuckerberg, they're not doing it for nothing.
No, of course not. No, this is all about AI. And so that is where I will say I have strong concerns about what DOGE is up to is, on the one hand, and I've seen it firsthand, AI has tremendous power, tremendous capability to do all kinds of wonderful things, and it also has the power to do terrible and horrifying things. And so insofar as good things are happening, then I would have to applaud those. But yeah, what's in it for them is taking over the entire federal government using an artificial intelligence system. That is what these experts who they've hired, I mean, they're 19 and 20-year-old. I mean, it's a lot of people say, oh, they're too young, but those are some of the things that these kids, I would say, have done, the 18, 19-year-old kids, I mean, translating a 2,000-year-old scroll that no one else could translate from Pompeii, that's just remarkable. And so he built a system that was able to translate a buried in lava scroll. Now, so that's a tremendous capability of AI. He went square by square on this scroll and had the computer system translate and figure out characters and eventually entire words and translate the Greek. That's a very cool thing. When you turn that AI capability loose on the government, it can do a number of things. If it finds waste, fraud, and abuse, that's a very good thing. But if it becomes that our government is wholly dependent on XAI and Elon Musk companies, or Sam Altman and OpenAI with this new Stargate initiative, or Larry Ellison with Oracle, it really could go either way. I don't think we should throw caution to the wind. I mean, this is why so many people have their eyes so closely on it. And we are watching, and we are going to report any bad things that happen. Thus far, I've just seen the waste, fraud, and abuse. In the longer term, I am concerned about having private companies, artificial intelligence running our government. If it's for the best, then I guess that's good. It's a little. It's alarming. I'm with you. I'm torn is really what it is. I don't know whether it's going to be good or bad. I think it's right to be cautious and to be monitoring it.
If it's all so innocent and also good and also positive, why would you get rid of people whose job it is to oversee what government is doing? Why would you do that?
If you're talking about the inspector generals at our agencies, I mean, I've been actually going through the inspector general reports from the Energy Department and from the Defense Department. I don't know if you know this, Petrie, but our Defense Department has never passed an audit, not in decades. I mean, we lose trillions of dollars. It is the Inspector General's office who is responsible for providing oversight. So I would say that the previous inspector generals, who were all fired, they should have been fired. They were not providing proper oversight before. Now, it remains to be seen. I mean, if they're replaced with good people who actually start investigating the agencies and finding out where all of this fraud and abuse is, hopefully our Pentagon can pass an audit for once. That would be good. If we continue on the same path we've been on for a very long time of failing audits, and I was reading these inspector general reports from the Biden administration, they are so weak, and the oversight is lacking. I mean, they found, here and there some issues where the secretary was misusing the charge card in the reimbursement system. When you dig deeper, you find that they are reimbursing nightclub visits and visits to bars and other sorts of places. When you really dig in, it's like, what is this all about? The inspector general reports were so tame, and they were not actually, there was no penalties. It was just kind of making recommendations. Maybe they shouldn't do that anymore. But we need proper oversight, and we need accountability, and we need people to face justice if they've been abusing their office. So I'm not, saying it's all good. It's a little soon to tell.
Just very briefly, because I'm running out of time, which I knew I would with you. What do you make of his picks? Pete Hegseth, RFK has just been approved by one vote. What do you make? And Gabbard has been approved. What do you make of these?
Yeah, well, Kash Patel and RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard were obviously the hardest ones to get through. I'm a little surprised they got through. But I'm generally in favor of people that the establishment is very much against, not because I'm worried about all kinds of things that either RFK or Tulsi or Kash Patel could do. But at the same time, it's time to shake the establishment up a little bit. That's what the American people voted for when they voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. And they gave him a mandate via Senate control and House control. So the American people decided that they're kind of sick of business as usual. They want people in there. I mean, I don't think most Republicans who voted for Donald Trump would vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for president, but they trust that Donald Trump has made the right pick. America has never been as unhealthy as it is right now. A lot of that is lifestyle. I think people do need to own up to that portion of it. But we, in America, I mean, there's all kinds of ingredients and chemicals in our food that they don't allow folks in Europe to eat.
No, that's why there's a trade deficit, because we won't buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And so if insofar as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants to find out what's in the food, if there is any poison in the food. This red 40 they just found that is giving people cancer, and there's all kinds of other crap in our food. So if we're going to find out and get that out and revoke FDA approvals for poisons in our food, I'm all for that. And the same thing with the drug companies. The big pharma industry in America is totally run amok, and it's it's harming people. We did a study. They've paid $122 billion, $122 billion in fines from the big pharmaceutical companies in our country for everything from killing people to bribing regulatory officials to false advertising. Our media companies are totally bought by pharma advertising dollars. 75% of all the ads on our TVs are pharmaceutical ads. And so if Robert F. Kennedy wants to shine a light on that or maybe do something about it, I think Americans support that. He's a big reason why Donald Trump got elected.
How long do you give him? One word. How long? Or two words?
RFK Jr.?
Yeah, how long do you, how long do you sit back and say, this could be a good thing, we'll wait and see? How long do you wait and see?
Well, we're working on a report right now. We're not going to wait and see. We've got a big report coming out on all the Trump-connected lobbyists. A lot of people who helped with his campaign are now going into the lobbying field and lobbying for interests like TikTok and pharmaceutical companies and foreign governments. And so we're not waiting at all. We're going to put out a report very soon. We're just putting the finishing touches on it now.
I'm really look forward to reading that myself. Thank you. As ever, Seamus Bruner, Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute and author of Control Oligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class. It is a really good book. Read it. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, it is a phone-in, as ever. And what I want to talk to you about at midnight is that today is World Cancer Day. So I wanted to reflect on that, actually, with you guys, really as a nod to the fight that you've had and the journey that you've been on. And I just wanted to talk to you about what it's been like in this country. Is the treatment good? Is the care good? Are you supported by work? Do you get supported by family and friends? And just really dig into what it is like to have cancer. I mean, so many people are told, I think it's 1,000 people a day in this country, are told they have a diagnosis diagnosis of cancer. Now, that isn't the diagnosis that it once was, right? In many cases, if you catch it early enough, you can be cured completely of cancer. In other cases, depending on how early it is caught, you can live a long time with drugs with cancer. And in some cases, of course, in some cancers, it is a death sentence. So I want to hear from you as to what your journey has been like, what it was like to be diagnosed, what it was like to go through the treatment, the support that you got, like I said. The NHS, I always thought the NHS was completely brilliant with cancer. I have total faith that if I had cancer, that I would be incredibly well looked after. And I still believe that. I do believe that. So if that has not been the case for you, let me know. Maybe you couldn't get the doctor to put you forward for diagnosis until it was a bit late, or in fact too late. Maybe you suspected you had cancer, or you were told that you were too young or you were too old to have treatment. What has happened? I know that as you get into your sort of 80s, late 80s, that doctors probably won't put you forward for cancer treatment because they say the treatment is more dangerous than you just living and dying with the cancer as opposed to of the cancer. So I would love to hear from you about this. I lost my best mate to cancer. It was the most horrific thing I ever seen. I've had lots of friends who've had cancer, who survived cancer. So women with breast cancer. And so this really is kind of just really, like I said, just a nod to you to say, you know, what's your journey been like, you know, since you've won, or maybe you're still trying to win. Give me a call. I really would love to hear from you on this. Like I said, it's something very close to my heart, and I think it's close to everybody, right? I think we all know somebody who's had cancer or died from cancer. So I think it is something that on World Cancer Day, it is good to remember and to support and to, I don't know, just offer a bit of encouragement to those who are still going through it. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight is the phone in. I just told you we're talking about cancer. I'd love to hear your journey, your story, because it is World Cancer Day today. And also at 11 o'clock, we have Sam Fowles here in the studio to go through the newspapers. Right, though, now it is time to catch us up on some tech news with our chic geek, Phil Dave, talkTV broadcaster. Hello, Phil.
Very good evening, Lady Hosken. How are you?
Very good evening. I'm terribly well. I was until I read this. AI crosses a red line after learning to replicate itself. Now, my understanding is as well that one AI system killed another AI system quite recently. Killed it. They tried to update and replace it, and the old one killed the new one.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I'm at ease at this news, but the truth is that it's not a major shock. After all, AI, or artificial intelligence, has always been designed, I suppose, to outsmart humans. That's the whole point of it, right? But in particular, what you're referring to is the fact that researchers from the Fudan University in China have basically discovered that this sort of advanced AI system can, well, basically replicate itself without human assistance. And so what they've done is that the scientists themselves have described this as like a major red line that's been crossed now. And they put two models against each other to assess their abilities to independently produce some sort of functioning replica. And basically, when prompted to clone themselves, they managed to do this successfully, really more than half the amount of times in 10 trials conducted. So it is quite extraordinary. Fortunately for me, Rufus the cat has not got the ability to replicate himself, as he's trying to ruin my moment. I'm so sorry.
Is he yours?
Anyway,
it's fun. It's like my dog. Whenever I get on the phone, he starts barking. He can't bear it that I'm
It's extraordinary, seriously. And he's had my undivided attention for the whole evening. But no, it's not good enough. I'm so sorry.
No.
But anyway, but no, in all seriousness, as far as the actual AI is concerned, I mean, I understand why people would be unnerved to hear this. And I have always said, if I've said from the second that AI sort of first popped up on the scene, I've always thought that AI should be licensed. I don't think anyone should be allowed to develop it. We need to know very carefully who is creating it and who's doing what with it. And the truth is that it is ultimately designed, I suppose, to be smarter than humans. So it can't really be a shock when actually it has managed to do something unassisted.
And of course, we've got open source. A lot of developers put their AI stuff onto open source, so anybody can access this stuff. But we won't need to, will we? Because AI will just replicate itself.
I don't think we're at a stage where AI is ultimately going to destroy human life. I know that some people are very worried about that. The time where I would imagine that is more intimidating is probably going to be where they start sort of combining robotic technology with AI. That's when you've probably got to start thinking, oh, this is less good. But
we've already got, though, military drones that use AI. We've already got, a lot of military systems are AI. So that is concerning. And the fact that this is a red line, people are going, this is a red line, but nobody's doing anything about it. OK, it's a red line, it's crossed it, let's see what happens next.
It could be just headline grabbing, let's be honest. The other thing as well, of course, that someone wants to consider, I suppose, is that the way AI is actually programmed is based on what's called algorithm. And for those who've not heard me talk about algorithms before, it is basically a sequence of events that triggers another sequence of events. So whatever happens is a consequence of what happens next, if you like. And that's what an algorithm is. Algorithms are used very much for when we're online shopping. So, for example, an algorithm would trigger the adverts that you might see on another website because it's looked at your behavior and thought, OK, you must be interested in this product, so I'll advertise it on another website. And I suppose that when you think about it in a military sense, that at no stage would any algorithm be trained to attack its own, if you see what I mean. It would only ever really be trained to attack an enemy. So for that alone, I suppose...
Who's the enemy? Who is the enemy? And does the AI decide who the enemy? I mean, look, there's so many questions. Anyway, let's move on to talk about self-healing roads. Could it be that our very own Mike Graham was right, that you can grow concrete? Is
Not quite.
Oh,
No, I mean
okay.
we're nearly there, but not quite.
All right.
This is potentially we can grow asphalt, I suppose. But yeah, so this is researchers from Google and also King's College London. What they have done is they've developed this self-healing asphalt that actually sort of could address Britain's. I didn't realise it was this. I knew it was bad, but this is extraordinary. 14.4 billion-pound pothole problem. This made the front page. I think it was yesterday this came up. And so this innovative material basically incorporates tiny particles that are made from plant waste, and it's filled with recycled cooking oil. And what happens is when the micro cracks form in the asphalt, the oil is released, filling in the cracks and preventing the bitumen, which is ultimately the sort of the substance that sort of gives tarmac its almost squishy-like substance, squishy-like appearance, I suppose. It stops it from becoming brittle. And so as a result of it, laboratory tests have shown that the self-healing asphalt can actually repair micro cracks in less than an hour and could extend a road lifespan by about 30%. Now, the trick in this is actually the word could. So it doesn't mean it's going to. And also let's not overlook the fact that the actual estimate is around 30%. So if that is the case, it means still that the road could still ultimately need replacing at some stage. But at the very least, I suppose that if it buys it a bit more life, then hopefully, with a bit of luck, it would actually do something to go quite a long way to actually, shall we say, at the very least, limit the number of potholes that we have to carry on seeing on our roads. And it's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's virtually not one journey now I think someone makes without having to fall or navigate a pothole.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But it does. I've just been thinking that does make sense. The oil, and also, oil has a lower freezing point. So
yes, well, it's definitely it is.
Yeah, I can.
It's the cold weather.
Yeah.
It is the cold weather that does
Freeze-thaw
ultimately
principle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cold weather that ultimately damages roads and makes them worse, because what happens is as the water goes into these little cracks that form, as the water freezes, the sub-temperatures that it freezes, it expands the hull and makes the road even more brittle. And as the cars go over it, especially now that we've got heavier cars to deal with, let's not forget electric vehicles are on average about 50% heavier than cars that are not electric. I think a lot of people can forget that. So if you've got that case, and you've also got electric buses now, you can imagine some of the abuse that the roads are getting. And it's not really a shock that they're in such a state, because they're really just, I suppose, not designed to take such abuse.
Yeah, I think that the freeze-thaw principle is about the only thing I remember from one of my science classes at school. I wasn't really much into it.
Oh, how much stick did you get at school for Petri dishes and stuff like that?
Oh, for Petri dishes, I can't even. Honestly, that's a whole other story. And my biology teacher was very old, very, very old, Mr. Woods, and he every lesson would give me a Petri dish, and I had a bag of them that I had to take back to school at the end of every term. Honestly,
I'm guessing he thought it was hilarious.
He thought it was hilarious, yeah. Honestly, but anyway, self-healing roads. There you go. That is brilliant. Amazon chooses Darlington for the launch of drone delivery service. I thought they were choosing London. I read that ages ago that it was going to be London.
I think London's one of their main targets, but I don't think London was ever going to be where they were going to launch it from, because they wanted to really put it through rigorous testing first. And I suppose they have to find somewhere that was quite near one of their bases, which Darlington is, and is one of the reasons why it was chosen, by the way. And also, I suppose they have to ensure that they have to probably choose an area that's not oversaturated with air traffic. Just to make 100% sure that they're carrying out all the rigorous safety tests that they need to do. So this is, as you rightly identify, Prime Air, which is what it's called, is the drone delivery service from Amazon. And they have targeted Darlington as the inaugural location. And the company is basically sort of seeking planning permission to establish drone flight operations at its fulfillment centre near Darlington. And it's also pursuing the clearance from the Civil Aviation Authority, or the CAA, for the actual flight operations. So there's quite a lot to overcome first and foremost.
It's going to be a hell of a complicated thing to.
I mean, I don't think we're going to see this within the next 5 years, personally. No. But I mean, that's what they're aiming for. But once all of these have been approved, Amazon sort of intends to begin hiring the staff to roll out the service, and this is probably what's most impressive. Their goal is to deliver packages within 60 minutes.
So they're going to have teams of people flying. I want that job, flying drones. Or are they going to use AI?
I suspect most people, what they'll probably do is they'll be the ones who actually have to pack the drones up more than anything. So I'd imagine that there won't be loads
of kids standing on the roof.
I'd imagine the drones themselves would be probably programmed, if you like, to use GPS.
Well,
and to
I'm
choose a
disappointed
location.
because that is the job that I want. Just very, very quickly, scratch and sniff or press X to sniff. Can you imagine this with television? Mind you, I do smell particularly sweet.
Well, this is very true. Yeah, I mean, I'm delighted to say that you can't sort of really experiencing that now because, I mean, well, Rufus has got no sense of personal hygiene. Stop that, Rufus. So anyway, he's currently playing with the wires. You couldn't make this up. I'm so sorry. Right. So anyway, do excuse me. I have to remove the cat. There we go. Right. Okay. Yes. So the smell-o-vision that you refer to is to do with what they're trying to do now, the advancements in the gaming industry. So what they're trying to do is to add sort of like this additional dimension to gamers, I suppose, because we've managed to crack most of it. Obviously, sound and vision is very much a very realistic part of most gaming now, especially if you're using virtual reality headsets. And there's these certain companies now that are trying to include smell into it as well. So, I mean, I suppose it depends really.
Having smelt what war smells like, you really don't want that.
Also as well, like, what on earth? Yeah, but especially what on earth are they planning on using as aromas, for goodness? As you quite rightly identify, I mean, thank goodness I don't know. I know you know very well. I don't know what's the whole scent of war is like, but I can't imagine it's exceptionally pleasant. And not to mention, but I can't imagine anything really sort of what else they're going to do. Like possibly if there's not that we condone such things, but if there's maybe some sort of game that involves shooting, what do you smell the barrel or something as the gun's gone off?
The cordite. I do quite like the smell of cordite in the morning. That was a quote from a film.
Now, look, least bit worrying.
I just want to read this. So pleased to see the resident stud muffin, Mr. Phil Dave, has joined you. Please send my regards to Snookums and your good self. So there you go, Snookums. Regards. You know
my embarrassment knows no bounds.
That is from Gary, as you know.
Of course it is.
I like the blushing. Phil Dave, thank you very much indeed. I shall see you soon.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a good evening to you. And before we head over to our film buff who's going to correct me, I'm going to do it myself. It was, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, not cordite, and it was Apocalypse Now. But I was in the right ballpark. I mean, I was pretty close. Anyway, I never mind saying I'm wrong. Well, I know I don't. Johnny Hand joins me now, filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter. Johnny, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And do you know what napalm smells like? That's the next part.
I've never been around napalm. I have to be honest with you. No.
The next part of the line is, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
You see, I knew you'd know, and I knew you'd correct me, so that's why I did it myself. If it wasn't you coming on, I'd have tried to bluff it out, but no. Brilliant film, though. Oh, my God.
Oh, one of the greatest films ever made.
Ever made. The cinematography in that.
The story behind how it was made is just as fascinating as well. They lost a whole set of that movie because there was a huge storm that just washed away like this £1 million set that they built, you know, and the lead actor had a heart attack during the making of the film. They had to delay it by several months so that Martin Sheen could get better again. Francis Ford Coppola mortgaged his own house to be able to pay for it in order to get the film made because it ran over budget. You had actors turning up not knowing their lines and just being drunk and not knowing what was going on. It was just the story behind how it gets made. If you ever get a chance, there's a documentary about it. If you ever get a chance to see that, it's fascinating.
Oh, I definitely would watch that, definitely. But as far as films go, it's one of the most extraordinary, I think, war films. Anyway, look, let's talk about the films that you want to talk about today. Elevation, it's a 15, it's 1 hour 30, and it's on Prime Video. Any good?
Yeah, it's a decent enough kind of horror thriller. So the premise is it's a very sort of what we call a high concept movie. So the concept is that quite suddenly, 3 years before this film takes place, loads of large kind of insect beetle-y type creatures, but the size of buses, burst out of the earth and just started indiscriminately killing people. No other creatures, just humans. It's like predators, and they have taken over the whole world. But bizarrely, they won't climb above 2,500 meters. So if you can get 2,500 meters above sea level, you'll be safe because they won't go past that limit. And nobody kind of knows why, but they just won't. So about 5% of the world's population is still alive, encamped in the mountains. And this story is set in the mountains of Colorado. But it centers around a man who's there with his young son, and his young son needs medical attention and has to be take oxygen every night, and the filters have broken. Well, he's right out filters, so his father has to go down into Boulder City to get some more of these filters from the hospital in Boulder City. But of course, it means going below that threshold of 2,500 meters, which means he's going to meet these big, nasty bug-like creatures. And he goes on this journey with two other people, one of whom is responsible for the death of his wife when she went on a similar trip because she thinks she knows how to kill these creatures, but she needs to go to her laboratory in Boulder City in order to prove it.
Okay. It sounds familiar in terms of storyline.
Yes, I mean, there's nothing new
here. The old zombie apocalypse, and you've got to go through a bunch of zombies to get to the place where the only cure is. Yeah, all of that. But anyway, let's have a listen or a look-see at Elevation.
They can't be killed, but no one's had a chance to study them. You study something long enough, you can figure out how to kill it.
If it doesn't kill you first.
No death.
Run!
It's different seeing them up close. We're not meant to share the planet with those things. They're Earth's new apex predators. But one day we're gonna beat them. I can't do this alone.
Come on, Will!
We're gonna have to fight them eventually.
I'm not leaving you. We're in this together.
A lot more of us are gonna die.
This is about more than just your son.
There's no such thing as more than my son.
They didn't spend a lot on special effects, did they?
I mean, you do see the creatures, not very much.
Just wibbly arms. Yeah. Wibbly,
there's
floppy.
a little bit more than that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
all right.
I mean,
well, I love the
all right.
actor, so I think he's great. Is it Anthony Mackie?
Yeah, Anthony Mackie, yeah, he's very good.
He's really good. Yeah, I like him. So that's Elevation. It's a 15, so not too scary. And it's 1 hour 30 on Prime. This one, it keeps popping up for me as well. It does not appeal, but you're cordially invited. It's an R, whatever R means. And it's 1 hour.
Basically means 15.
Oh, it's so. I'm getting right confused with all of this. It used to be the old days. I knew all the numbers. 1 hour 49 on Prime again. Any good?
Yeah.
No.
So this is a rom-com, stars Reese Witherspoon and not Witherspoon and Will Ferrell. And so the basic premise, again, it's a high concept movie. There are 2 weddings booked at the same venue on the same day on this small island. And Will Ferrell plays the father of the bride, very sort of overprotective father of one of the brides, and Reese Witherspoon plays a very domineering older sister to the other one. And they agree to allow each other to have the weddings, to run both weddings at the same time. They come to a sort of compromise, but then they're a bit annoyed with each other, a bit niggly with each other. Things start to go wrong, and then they start to end up sabotaging each other's weddings that they have planned, and the whole thing just sort of descends into chaos.
The problem is, I like both of those actors, but I hate this kind of film. Let's have a look or a listen to You're Cordially Invited.
Aren't you the wedding planner? You never even called this place?
I have social anxiety.
You get anxiety from dialing a phone?
I can do anything that doesn't require a phone call.
Listen, you're gonna have the greatest weekend of your lives.
My sweet little pumpkin's gonna have her special day, and no one's getting in the way of that.
He is using up all of our sunset. Half of the sunset is gone.
Sorry for a little late.
You better back off.
I'm not gonna back off.
We're gonna go chaos monkey on his ass. Get the cake!
It's a trap!
This should be good.
Do we still not know how the alligator got into the room?
No, we don't. We don't know.
Yeah, okay. Seen it before a million times. If it's your kind of thing, it's probably quite good fun. Let's talk about Star Trek, though. Section 31. There are so many spin-offs now, and I get confused about it all. And it actually just makes me think I can't be bothered, even though I was quite a fan of Star Trek in my youth.
Yeah, well, this is a spin-off of a spin-off.
Good.
So this is a made-for-TV movie spin-off from Star Trek Discovery, which was a series which was set before the original series. So no, I love Star Trek. I've actually recently rewatched all 13 of the Star Trek movies, including the original cast, the Next Generation cast, and the reboot cast. So when this popped up, I thought, oh, this is great. I like a bit of Star Trek. You know, I'm interested to see this. And I started watching it, and I just thought, this has nothing to do with Star Trek.
Right.
Yeah, they
listen,
mentioned the Federation.
We're running out of time. Let's have a quick listen, and then we can fill in the rest. Okay, let's have a quick listen or look at Star Trek Section 31. It's a PG-15. It's 1 hour 35 on Paramount. Okay, so sorry to cut you off there, but you're saying that that's Star Trek Section 31, nothing to do with what you know to be Star Trek.
It's nothing like any of the other Star Trek movies. It's really one for the real nerdy fans out there, because it's not even a particularly great story.
Rewatching all 30 films isn't nerdy. Just checking.
No, but they're good. If it was as good as those, it'd be great. But this one is just I was so bored watching it. I thought, oh no.
Really that bad?
No, don't do this.
Really that bad?
It's not a Star Trek movie. That to me is just like it's lying to me. It's not It's not what I was expecting. Because I was expecting something similar to the rest of the Star Trek franchise, but it's
but
not.
For me, Star Trek had that sort of
nothing like any of the others.
Yeah, Star Trek has this almost sort of a cosy. I mean, for those of us who sort of grew up with it as well, it had that a lot of them bolted on that cosy feel, and that's just getting further and further away from the original. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Listen, John, thank you.
They were funny.
Great picks. Your line is a little bit dodgy, but so I can't hear you. But thank you very much indeed for that. Those are your film picks. Coming up, though, we have Sam Fowles in the studio, who is a barrister and a commentator, and we're going to be going through all of the newspaper front pages for tomorrow. So stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, you are with Petrie, and for the next hour in the studio with me is Sam Fowles, barrister and a commentator, going through the newspapers for you for Wednesday. Wednesday's papers already, blimey. Sam, hello.
Hi there.
It's good to have you back. You were meant to be in a couple of weeks ago, but you had a horrible bicycle accident.
I was, yeah. I was knocked off my bike, which was a bit of a shock, to be honest.
So I live in fear of that with my boy, because he cycles everywhere.
I must say that a lot of people unfortunately said I made more sense when I was concussed than I do normally. That was not sure that's a great thing. Yeah, it was mainly my wife saying that. You're right.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm glad, because we were worried. I got the call that you weren't able to come in because of what had happened. So I'm very pleased that it wasn't that it wasn't serious, as we know it can be, cycling in this city. I want to start off just by talking about World Cancer Day, because I find in the world that we live in right now, the pressure of so much news coming in and so much of else battered from all over the world now, that we don't sometimes just stop and appreciate or think about those people who, it's nearly 400,000 people a year in this country living with, diagnosed with, dying, about a third of those die from cancer. It is still the most hideous disease, and that's why I wanted to talk about this on World Cancer Day, because there are people, I think, they feel a bit forgotten in a way. This is a big, big deal. I don't think anybody knows. I mean, you must know somebody who's been diagnosed at least, or...
And unfortunately, more than one.
Yeah.
And I think it's... What is perhaps most frustrating is two things, and certainly a lot of... what you see a lot, particularly when women are diagnosed with cancer, is they are diagnosed late.
Yeah.
And this is not just a cancer thing, this is a general thing with women reporting symptoms, is they are still, in 2025, not necessarily believed the first time. And you get various reports of this, of women having to go back again and again and again and say, look, I'm not making this up, I'm not over-exaggerating, I'm not hysterical. And then it turns out it's cancer. And if perhaps, you know, women have been taken a bit more seriously earlier on in that process, then you'd have caught it earlier, there's a better chance of treating it. The second thing that really frustrates people with cancer, and I think should frustrate all of us, is that it's not necessarily a curable thing, but it's something that we could be a lot better at curing. And in the noughties, there was a real push and a real belief that we could get to a point where, yes, that was the phrase, right? We'll cure cancer. We were always saying that was the goal, the ideal thing you wanted to achieve in medicine was to cure cancer. And it really feels like that has slipped down the list now.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of people who would say the drugs companies don't want people to be cured from cancer. There's a drive for people to live with cancer. And either way, I don't think people care as long as you don't die from it, right? But yeah, the thing is with women, I suppose that you know, there's been stories in the papers, even recent, I think even yesterday, saying, look, if you're fobbed off by a doctor, if you're told it's nothing, go and get a second opinion, directed directly at women. And maybe it's because women tend to go to the doctor more so that they're not believed, and when men go to the doctor, it's such a rare occurrence that a man will take himself to the GP that the GP maybe takes it more seriously, or it is still overwhelmingly men that are the gatekeepers for onward care if you're a little bit worried about something.
And I think there's something perhaps even more fundamental. And the Caroline Corradi-Perez looked at this in her book Invisible Women, that medicine is still fundamentally a male discipline, and this is not to say that it's just all men practicing medicine. It's that the actual science of medicine is based fundamentally on male physiology. That's because obviously the way that science works is you build on the last thing that was done, and so we're still in some cases building on things that have their roots in the 19th century, and rightly so. That's not a criticism, but it is a fact that is all male. That's all based on male physiology.
You're absolutely right, and then it's just applied or watered down or slightly altered for women, and they're only just now coming to the fore talking about women's heart attacks, so that women's heart attacks are fundamentally different to male heart attacks, how they present themselves, the warning signs, all of those, and even the response to treatment. And they're going, who knew? It's not just that we take a woman, a man, and give a woman half the medicine if she's half the size. This is different physiology, and it's the same with children's care. Going, a child is not just a small version of an adult, that physiologically they're different and therefore need a different treatment regime. So we're very slow to catch up with that.
It is amazing that, you know, and I'm sure if you looked at every scientific discipline, you'd find an assumption, you'd go sort of, God, how are they still thinking about that?
Yeah.
But it is amazing how there is still that element of, you know, that we'll just reduce it a bit.
Yeah.
We'll just change it a little bit, rather than saying, well, actually, this is a different physiology and it needs a different approach.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that goes for gender, it goes for children, it goes for race to a certain extent, because again, medicine is a very white science.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think it's really a really important conversation to have, and it's not necessarily a conversation that is a criticism of the medical profession.
No.
It's a conversation of saying, well, you know, science has to develop. We all support that. This is where it needs to go next. This is how we do it better.
And it's so easy to stay with the status quo, isn't it? It's so easy just to go, well, this is the way we've always done it, and not even thinking that there could possibly be another way to do it. And it does apply again with cancer treatment, and I point again to children, how you treat cancer in a child as opposed to how you treat cancer in a child girl as opposed to an adult man. It's not just cutting that treatment down, it's looking at a completely different way.
Yeah.
And maybe, Sam, with the advent of the new individualised cancer treatments that we're seeing now that are down to DNA, that we will start to see that divergence of care.
Yeah, I think that's there's a real possibility there, and and you were talking about AI earlier on the show, and I share the scepticism that you both expressed about AI. I think it's something we need to be very careful with. But one area where there is fantastic potential is in medicine and in mapping individual conditions. Not even talking about, well, we have one approach for men and one approach for women. It's we have one approach for this patient and one approach for a different patient. And the reason that AI can be so beneficial there is literally just that it does more calculations faster
and
than
reads
an
all
individual
the papers that have ever been written in a second.
And so all of the data that you would take from an individual and have to process and analyse that could take, a team of doctors days or even weeks, all of that data can be mapped and analysed and processed by AI within seconds. And that's where the potential really is. There's a wider conversation about why are we putting money into AI that's going to deny people their benefits rather than putting money into AI that's going to solve cancer.
Yeah.
But that's possibly a conversation for a different day.
I think perhaps because one of them's more lucrative than the other, maybe. They're just about to start a trial, aren't they, with AI and breast screening for women. And they've got a trial running. They're just starting to run that trial, and I think they'll run it alongside traditional breast screening and AI screening, just to monitor it. But a lot of X-rays are now read by AI, and they do an absolutely bang-on job with it. But I suppose I still would like some oversight. When I have to go in for my screening, I like the fact there's a human being there with me who can say, look, they look good to me, but we'll go back to the waiting room, and we've got a senior doctor that will look at them as well. My local hospital is Charing Cross, and they've got a breast screening department. And it's brilliant. It's set up. I mean, men can go in there as well, but it's set up so that you get the result in the same day. You don't get sent home after and being told the doctor will call you. You see a senior doctor who says, look, I've looked at your scans, 3 people have looked at your scans, and they're clear. So come back in a couple of years' time.
And I think that's what you need. And that's the, having praised AI, let's add in the risk, which is that AI is ultimately human. It is it's designed by humans, it's made by humans, and it replicates human assumptions. So if humans are making mistakes, AI will also be making those mistakes, but it will be making them much faster on a much larger scale. So that's why we have to be so careful.
That's why there has to be oversight. But on the whole, I think that when you look at what AI can do, particularly my most exciting thing with AI in medicine is that it is now able, like I said, able to read all the papers that has ever been written by any eminent medical genius, and all the information in a matter of seconds, and then will then come forward with a drug and say, look, this drug is brilliant with this, but why don't you try it with that? Because actually the symptom, it's similar. And so we're being able to use drugs that have long been proved safe for other conditions, and that's why we're seeing an advent now of drugs being that used to be used for depression, and it's now being used to stop alcoholism or whatever. So it is fascinating.
There is, there's so much potential there, and it's AI like anything else, any other bit of technology, whether you're talking about guns, whether you're talking about stirrups. It's not about what the technology is fundamentally; it's about how you use it. And every question comes down to, can you trust the people? Can you trust the humans? Do they have the human systems in place? And that's the same with AI as it is with...
you can't just leave it to the AI, because they discovered not long ago, didn't they, that AI, in a lot of cases, is racist, because the people inputting the information, as you were saying, were racist. Probably not to the extent of some people that we know, but certainly did not identify, like black faces not being read properly, not being identified properly on scans and things like that. They didn't even think about it.
That was one that they used in it was an immigration tool that they used, and because the way the algorithm learns, it said that, well, look, one person from this country has been refused, and it just learned to refuse people from a particular country. So if you you put, I don't know, you're from Ruritania on your form, the AI just didn't sort of think about things in the round. It just said, oh, Ruritania, well, you're banned. You're good. And again, that wasn't the AI's fault. The AI is a tool. Yeah. It's humans did a bad job in putting that thing together.
In not thinking outside of that of their natural sphere. Right. So Cancer Awareness Day. If you're going through that journey, I would love to hear from you. So do let me know. Now. We've decided on this programme to start looking at some, well, yesterday we did Canadian papers, and today we're doing American papers. And we've got the Washington Post, New York Times and USA Today, just to see what's going on over there, because I think it's fascinating what's happening. And it really is interesting, I think, to look and see what American reaction has been to it. First of all, the Washington Post. Of course, there's images there from the American Airlines crash at Potomac into the Potomac River, and today they are lifting out the catastrophically damaged sections of the fuselage of that aircraft, Flight 5342.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting things when you read into this a bit more, and I think there's a lot of people sort of pointed out that just a few days before this crash happened, Donald Trump forced out the director of the Transport Security Administration, the Coast Guard, and disbanded the Aviation Security Committee. Now that's a bad look, right? You disband the Aviation Security Committee.
The head of the FAA was quit, I think.
Elon Musk demanded he quit, and he had to go. Yeah. Now, that's a bad look. I don't think anyone would really argue that there is a causal link there, because it was a matter of days, and it's not the head of the FAA that's manning the air traffic control here. But what it is suggests that it's going to be very difficult to learn the real lessons from this. Yeah, I agree. And you've got also all of the people that are supposed to be leading the investigation and leading the work on working out what happened and how to ensure it doesn't happen again. Those organisations are leaderless. The top people have been forced out.
And the worry with that is the lack of experience, then, isn't it, to be able to manage this. And look, whatever happened, it is so devastating that America needs to know what caused this. And also, I think there was a freeze put on hiring of air traffic controllers as well. And we do know, I think, that the air traffic control was down one person who was allowed to go home early. So I hope that we get to the bottom of this. We haven't seen evidence of the Black Hawk helicopter, although that is likely to be lifted, I would imagine, in the darkness of night, because it's a military aircraft.
Yes, I suspect they won't want to broadcast how to knock down a prize military asset.
A Black Hawk, yeah, extraordinary. But interesting to see those pictures there. The Washington Post also, I just need to say, Sam, we might have to break because Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's live conference starts shortly, so we might cut live to that. So if I suddenly shut you up, that's why, not being rude. Trump agrees to pause tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Nations vow to bolster border security. Each one of these countries, of course, claiming this as a win. Donald Trump saying this is what I wanted from the threat of tariffs. I'm only giving them 30 days. I can go back to this at any point, but with Canada sending 10,000, Mexico sending 10,000 to each of the borders. This is what I wanted.
Yeah, there's just so many layers of rubbish and falsity in these stories, I think, because obviously it's being spun as a Trump got what he wanted, he can walk away, his big negotiation technique. Actually, what's happened is the Mexico and Canada have both performed done entirely performative moves. They've marched a few soldiers up to the border to.
Yeah, I was speaking to a Canadian yesterday who said, "Look, you'll hear 10,000 mentioned. We're sending about 2,000."
Yeah. And the idea, what sort of Trump has said as a reason for this, and And let's be honest, this whole thing is performance. None of this is actually intended to solve any real problems. This is intended to make Trump look big and tough. And Canada and Mexico's response is intended to just shut Trump up for a bit, stroke his little ego, and so the grown-ups can keep on doing business, which is what they need to do. But they're doing this sort of little show of soldiers going there. Is that going to stop the drugs crossing the border? Because that's what Trump's claims he wanted.
Certainly not at Canada, because less than 0.02% of all of the fentanyl comes across the Canadian border anyway.
And given that if you're an experienced drug smuggler, and there are drugs crossing the Mexican border. Yeah, right.
Look. What is more troubling, I think, certainly because you studied economics, is the idea that America's being sold the idea that tariffs will replace income tax eventually, and that economically just is not possible.
No.
There's never going to be enough money. And while Trump isolates other countries and becomes an unreliable trading partner, those countries have other countries with whom they can trade. So, Canada will now start looking to China and to the EU to build trade relations there, because they don't believe they can rely on America. And that is not good for that strongman position that Donald Trump believes he's taking.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it's a fundamentally weak position that he's taken, because it's all very well that maybe Canada has got to fight a trade war on one front, right? Worst case scenario, Canada has to fight a trade war on one front. Mexico has to fight a trade war on one front. The EU, China, all fighting on one front, i.e. with America. Trump's plan seems to be he's going to have multiple trade wars all at the same time. And let's remember what the effect of a tariff is. The immediate effect of a tariff is to make things more expensive for American consumers. Now, the idea is that encourages American consumers to not buy that thing and buy American. But first, you've got to have the American equivalent. America has got to make an equivalent. Second, that equivalent has got to include parts that only come from America. And with global supply chains, that product just doesn't really exist anymore. So what he's actually talking about is saying, in this cost of living crisis, having been elected, promising to address the cost of living crisis for Americans, he's going to throw his weight around and potentially make lots and lots of products more expensive for Americans in the short term. And in the long term, he's going to make America an unreliable trading partner. And so people will look at, the massive markets opening up in Brazil, for example.
The BRIC countries.
China is still is a huge untapped, and it seems strange to say China's an untapped market, right? Because it's been a global economic player for so long. But it is. It's China, increasing as well so quickly.
The other thing I think that maybe isn't understood is that China only relies on exports for 37% of its entire income. It doesn't need America.
Correct. And
it doesn't need America. They think that if it wasn't for America, they'd all go broke. 37% of China's economy is export. The rest of it is all internal.
And actually China, if you're in Donald Trump's position and you really wanted a model of how to increase American manufacturing, you do well to look at China, which has focused on developing its own industries, so it didn't have to rely on tariffs.
No,
and just
also
develop better products in China.
Also, China's being very canny at the moment to avoid tariffs in other countries. It's moved most of its manufacturing to Vietnam, so it will be entering the country without tariffs. Sam, we've got to take a quick break. We'll be back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Sam Fowles, barrister and commentator. And Sam, we're looking at the Times for Wednesday. Cut spending or taxes must increase. What a shocker.
Oh my God, I've just got my head in my hands at this headline, because this is, I feel like we're in 2011 again, and they're saying, look at the things that haven't worked for 16 years. Let's do the same thing again to stimulate the economy. And this is, I think, first we need to set this in context, right? This is the story behind this headline is that the Office for Budget Responsibility has said to Rachel Reeves, because we've had higher than expected inflation, because we've got higher than expected borrowing costs, you don't have the fiscal headroom that you thought you had. And
it's basically the bond market, isn't it, where the yields, which is the interest, have gone skyrocket because nobody wants to buy debt, and if they do buy it, they want a really good interest rate. It's nearly 5%, I think.
And because of market worries over Donald Trump, actually, was what triggered it. People was thinking it's going to be more expensive to do business because of what Trump's doing, so people were much less willing to lend money to governments.
And they didn't want to do it. And also there's a lot of debt out there, so they're kind of a bit debt bored. And that interest rate, that yield, has wiped out, they say, the £9.9 billion in fiscal headroom that she gave herself.
But here is the twist. That is only the case if you imply Rachel Reeves' fiscal rules, quote-unquote fiscal rules. Now, Rachel Reeves says her fiscal rules are ironclad, and the rule is basically you've got to balance the budget within 3 or 5 years, depending on which measure you're using. She says that's ironclad. Now, the other people that said their fiscal rules were ironclad were George Osborne, Theresa May, and I'm just going to name every single Prime Minister and Chancellor.
They've got about 5 levers they can pull within that. It's a bit of a dodge.
Yeah, ironclad fiscal rules have changed 9 times in the past 16 years. So actually, what the OBR is saying to Rachel Reeves is, if you keep applying the same self-imposed rules, then you have to act in a certain way. However, lots and lots of economists say, well, these fiscal rules don't make any sense. No. And so, for example, probably the school of economics that I belong to, and the school that I would argue has been proved right most often and created the most growth, says that when you're in a depression or in a stagnation like we are now, what you do is you borrow and you spend to stimulate the economy. So you get people spending, you get people creating, and so essentially it's like starting an engine, right? You put a spark in to start the engine, and people have more money in their pockets, so they spend more money, they feel more confident, they start new businesses, they buy from new businesses, and this heats the economy up. And then when the time is good, when times are good, when your economy is hot, well, that's the point at which you cut spending and you cut back, because the economy, the private sector, doesn't need the same sort of support. And that is what created a boom years after the Second World War. That's what created boom years under New Labour. And it's what actually creates a strong economy fundamentally, because one of the main ways you promote spending, and one of the main ways you get the economy working, is you invest in infrastructure, you invest in the fundamentals that people need to use to do business. So you fund lots of research, you fund roads, you fund bridges, you fund the national grid. And all of these things don't disappear. These things last and make the country structurally stronger in the long term. Whereas if you try and cut your way to growth, which is what Cameron and Osborne did, what Theresa May did, it's what, well, we don't really know what Boris Johnson did. Boris Johnson didn't have a plan. But it's what they've tried before. What happens is you fundamentally weaken the economy, and you weaken the country generally. So, for example, when a catastrophe came along, like COVID, because Cameron and Osborne had tried to cut their way to growth, we didn't have sufficient medical supplies, so we ended up spending lots and lots of more public money trying to get medical supplies short term. So cutting your way to growth just means you spend more public money in the long term, whereas investing in infrastructure, investing in the basics, A, gets people spending because it gives them jobs, and B, makes you stronger going forward.
And if you see everything around you improving, the most important thing with the marketplace is confidence, consumer confidence, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Just very quickly, NHS allowed the Nottingham killer to skip medication. This is Callacane, who killed those 3 people in Nottingham. The paranoid schizophrenic who killed 3 people in Nottingham was described as a personable and gentle by mental health workers before he was discharged, despite a history of violence and a refusal to take medication. There's some, certainly the NHS is not keen to reveal all the information on Callacane, but I think we need to know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to know what went wrong. So the same mistakes
it is in the
are
public
not
interest for us
made
to know.
in the same way.
Yeah.
And you know, we have to be, as a point of principle, you should be very careful about revealing someone's personal medical information.
But this is a triple murderer who is locked up for life. I don't think it's going to do any harm.
There's the balance clearly falls in favour of looking at this very, very carefully. Just going back to my earlier point, since 2016 we've seen 26% cuts to mental health provision. Individual mental health practitioners are dealing with, on average, more than 100 patients per one mental health practitioner. Is it any wonder that things like Callacane slip through the cracks?
No, I know. I mean, and we've also got the situation with the Southport killer as well, who also wasn't picked up by many multiple agencies who should have been able to do that. Right, Sam and I are going to take a quick break, but we will be back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good to have your company. With me in the studio is Sam Fowles, who's a barrister and commentator, and we're going through Wednesday's newspapers. Labour MPs tell Starmer to get tougher on immigration. I mean, it would be hard for him to get less tough, wouldn't it? I mean, what's he done?
This is just a masterclass in how to not do politics, I think,
really
from Labour MPs here. So what is behind this story? It's not just sort of coming out of the blue. What's being reported, at least, is that Labour MPs, I think about 89 of them, have formed this sort of group that's looking at the threat, the political threat from reform.
Yeah.
And they say, right, well, reform's really hard on immigration, so we need to be hard on immigration. Now, let's just pause here and think about the logic of that. I need to beat my political opponent, right? So I'm going to beat my political opponent by telling everyone that they've got it right and I've got it wrong. How is that ever going to work? If Labour are going, oh, actually, guys, reform have been right all this time, we should be tougher on immigration, they've been getting it right all this time, why on earth would you vote for Labour? If indeed reform have been right on, then why not just vote for reform?
Well, the problem is that we often see the case where right-wing parties will rise when left-wing parties don't listen to the public, don't do what the public want them to do. And if reform win, it will be the fault of Labour.
Absolutely.
And in not addressing the things that people want addressed. Rightly or wrongly, the public have spoken. They want this illegal migration addressed, and all they're seeing from Starmer is he keeps quiet about everything that he thinks is going to be unpopular, and then he has these Monday morning resets that he's doing all the time where he talks about stuff that nobody wants to hear about. If he doesn't get a grip on illegal migration, then he is handing reform a win.
But actually, I disagree with that because, when you look at the figures under Labour, they're deporting migrants at a level not seen in years. Actually, so they were actually deporting migrants much faster than the last government did, or at least they claim to be. We can only go on what's being told. But I think if Labour really want to tackle this issue, you don't say, well, you've got this populist who's done what every right-wing populist has done since the dawn of time, which is find a minority and blame them for all of the world's problems. You need to look at the actual causes of what's troubling people. And those causes are that governments since the 1980s have systematically impoverished and disempowered the working class in the UK. If you look at people's incomes, look at their jobs over the last 30 housing over the last 30 years.
I mean, Sam, to be fair, this is what I always say, that these people are being blamed. But the point is that the loudest voice is the one that gets heard, and it doesn't matter how many times you say it is not the fault of the immigrants. It is the fault of decades of different governments failing with infrastructure, failing with jobs, failing with housing, failing with everything. They just haven't put you first.
Yeah.
But I think that falls on deaf ears because people go, yeah, but.
But you can't solve a problem that doesn't exist, and realistically,
but it does exist. People see them coming in, £8 million a day on hotels, the cost of the healthcare for illegal migrants, the cost of housing. People do see it and they do hear about it.
And again, the cost of housing isn't being driven up by immigrants. £8 million or whatever it is on hotels are because government made a choice. The last government wanted to weaponise immigration and blame immigrants, so they kept them in hotels rather than processing applications. You can't say we're going to solve this immigration crisis, and we know that because every government that wants an easy soundbite since the 1970s has said we're going to solve the immigration crisis.
But I think we have to make a division between what we know to be a deliberate policy of legal immigration.
Yeah.
Right? That is a deliberate policy because the birth rate is not replenishing itself in this country, and we need people to work in the jobs, to pay the tax, to keep old people cold in the winter. But that's one thing to grapple with. The other thing is the illegal migrant. That's what people are most exasperated by. And to be told that you can't stop that is something that is very difficult to hear. Why can't we stop it? We're an island. How are we not stopping it? Why, smashing the gangs. There's another gang. It's like whack-a-mole. Get rid of one gang, another gang pops up. We know
it's a problem we created. And I want to just separate two problems here. So firstly, I think people are rightly angry when they see someone they perceive to be an immigrant, and certainly in my direct experience, I've had seen people saying, well, these immigrants are getting special treatment, and actually the people they're talking about are people who are, ninth generation English, and they just happen to be brown. But people see themselves in competition for a limited pool of resources, whether that's housing, whether that's jobs, whether that's money, right? But so fix that by giving people the resources that they need. Look at the reasons the housing why we have such little housing. That's because housing providers, big developers, don't build out housing. They've got hundreds of thousands of housing permissions. Houses that have been granted planning permission to be built that are just not built every year because it's not profitable for developers to do so.
It's a version of land banking, isn't it?
Yeah. And look at healthcare, look at benefits, look at any of these things. None of them happen because of immigrants. They happen because of decisions made by powerful people. But people see themselves as in competition. So solve the fundamental problems. Second,
but even when you say, well, we're going to build more houses, people are going, yeah, well, they'll all go to the immigrants, or build more houses on what land? I think that it is very easy to try to intellectualise it. I always try to point out that the elephant in the room is not the immigrant; it's the rubbish governments that we've had, and remain that we have. But the point is that that's what people are saying, and I think that the Starmer not willing to even engage with those conversations shows an arrogance. I think him calling anybody who has concerns over migration or illegal migration as far right is it's tone deaf, and he does this at his peril and the peril of all of us. You've at least got to address, if not the problem that people think there is.
Yeah.
Do that. Be a grown-up. Have those conversations and correct us if we're wrong. Correct people. Say, no. That's actually our fault. We didn't build enough houses.
Yeah. And that's what I'd like to see. And I'd like to also...
He's tone deaf. He would rather say, I'm not talking to you because you're racist. That's the problem.
And I think we need to rather than shutting down the conversation, I would love to see a mainstream politician make the positive case for immigration as well.
Well, they do that all the time.
Well, but they don't.
They do.
Like the fact that in the UK our culture is defined by immigration, our sport is defined by immigration, our food is defined by immigration. All of the so many things that are fantastic about the UK come about because we're a melting pot. And all we hear from politicians, Labour or Conservative or Reform, is what a problem all of these foreigners are. And so I would like to see...
But it's hard to argue.
Okay, so really push back against that.
Of course there are positives, and we know what those positives are. But there are also massive negatives when you see crime rates in certain areas with certain demographics. When you see... a different religion that people are concerned about, and you have politicians saying that, look, some of these religions are misogynistic. When you see the colour of the skin of the rape gangs, although recently the Scottish one, they were all white, by the way. But look, people see what they're shown.
But they're being shown something misleading, which is what I'm...
But there are problems. It's not right to say that there are no problems with migrants in this country.
No,
there is not right to say that.
I think it is right to say that, because the problems are not with migrants. The problems are with failures of policing, failures of economics. So let's take rape gangs, for example. So this is something that's always said, right, that the rape gangs are a migrant problem. Actually, if you look at group sexual offences against children, so there's not the idea of a rape gang that's a tabloid invention, right? They were looking at people who conspire in groups to commit sexual offences against children. That happens at a higher rate amongst the white population than the Asian population. Asian people are underrepresented in convictions for that offence.
But again,
the reason it spreads. To wrap this point up, the reason it spreads. And certainly in a couple of high-profile cases, there were very serious errors made, and those have been identified and addressed. But the reason it spreads so much is because of endemic misogyny in our policing, because we don't take children's reports of crimes seriously enough. But
there is endemic misogyny in certain religious groups that are in this country.
Yeah, like Catholics.
There is no doubt about that. Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm not
like
saying
Catholics, like Protestants.
but it doesn't mean that there isn't in other religions too.
No, but that's what I mean. To suggest that misogyny is an inherently Muslim thing, which is what's alleged, is again completely fallacious. Yes, certainly, there are many misogynists in Islam, right? And Afghanistan is a really but you don't even need to go to Afghanistan. There are very conservative Muslims in the UK who are without a doubt misogynistic, just the same as there are very conservatives. But as much of a threat as the very conservative Catholics who are misogynistic. And I mean, if you want to look at one group that is a hotbed of allegations of child sexual abuse, you look at the Catholic Church, not the Muslim faith, right?
Yeah.
And certainly that is a much more widespread and deeper and more covered up problem, which is abuse within the Catholic Church.
Not just Catholics,
but also extremist conservative Protestants as well, extremist conservative Hindus. Actually, when you have this conversation, you think, hang on, is the problem with a particular religion, or is it when you have a group of people who say, well, you have to listen to me because I am channeling the voice of a higher deity, and therefore I get to do what I want, which is essentially every single extremist religion.
Yeah. Right, we've got to take a break, but Sam and I will be back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, you're with Petrie, this is Talk, and Sam Fowles is with me in the studio going through Wednesday's papers. Let's have a look at the Daily Mail. Distraught mother of Lebby victim hits out at disrespectful campaign to free her. Now this must be really very difficult for those families of the victims that she was found guilty of murdering. But there seems to be a big push now to prove that there was a miscarriage of justice and she is in fact innocent.
Yeah, there's a very interesting report from a group of very eminent clinicians who have suggested that the medical evidence in the original trial was flawed. And basically, what it comes down to was the way a baby's skin looks. And they say in the trial, the experts said, well, there's this mottling effect, and that mottling effect on the skin can only be produced by injecting air into the veins, which is how they dye it. And this this group is saying, well, actually, it's not a mottling effect on the skin. It's a slightly different effect, and this was never challenged.
Sam, I'm going to have to stop you there because we do have a live feed. I just want to go quickly to this conference. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are giving a joint formal address.
Benjamin Netanyahu back to the White House. It's a wonderful feeling and a wonderful event. We had fantastic talks, and thank you very much with your staff. He's the first foreign head of state to visit during our administration, and Bibi, I want to say it's an honor to have you with us. Over the past 4 years, the U.S. and the Israeli alliance has been tested more than any time in history. But the bonds of friendship and affection between the American and Israeli people have endured for generations, and they are absolutely unbreakable. They are unbreakable. I'm confident that under our leadership, the cherished alliance between our two countries will soon be stronger than ever. We had a great relationship. We had great victories together 4 years ago. Not so many victories over the past 4 years, however. In my first term, Prime Minister and I forged a tremendously successful partnership that brought peace and stability to the Middle East like it hadn't seen in decades. Together, we defeated ISIS. We ended the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, one of the worst deals ever made, by the way, and imposed the toughest ever sanctions on the Iranian regime. We starved Hamas and Iran's other terrorist proxies, and we starved them like they had never seen before. Resources and support disappeared for them. I recognized Israel's capital, opened the American embassy in Jerusalem, and got it built, by the way. Built it too, just not only designated it, but got it built at a price that nobody's seen for 40 years. We got it built, it's beautiful, all Jerusalem stone, right from nearby, and it's something that's very special. And recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, something that they talked about for 70 years, and they weren't able to get it, and I got it. And with the historic Abraham Accord, something that was really an achievement that was, I think, going to become more and more important because we achieved the most significant Middle East peace agreements in half a century, but the Abraham Accords in particular, and I really believe that many countries will soon be joining this amazing peace and economic development transaction. It really is a big economic development transaction. I think we're going to have a lot of people signing up very quickly. Unfortunately, for 4 years, nobody signed up. Nobody did anything for 4 years except in the negative. Unfortunately, the weakness and incompetence of those years, those past 4 years, the grave damage around the globe that was done, including in the Middle East, grave damage all over the globe. The horrors of October 7th would never have happened if I were president. The Ukraine and Russia disaster would never have happened if I were president. Over the past 16 months, Israel has endured a sustained, aggressive, and murderous assault on every front, but they fought back bravely. You see that, and you know that. What we have witnessed is an all-out attack on the very existence of a Jewish state in the Jewish homeland. The Israelis have stood strong and united in the face of an enemy that has kidnapped, tortured, raped, and slaughtered innocent men, women, children, and even little babies. I want to salute the Israeli people for meeting this trial with courage and determination and unflinching resolve. They have been strong. In our meetings today, the Prime Minister and I focused on the future, discussing how we can work together to ensure Hamas is eliminated and ultimately restore peace to a very troubled region. It's been troubled, but what's happened in the last 4 years has not been good. I want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for working closely with my transition team, the Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who's here somewhere. Steve? Stand up, Steve, please. What a job you've done. What a good job you've done. Proud of you. Done a fantastic job. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Thank you, Mike, for working so well with us. Thank you. We have, in addition, Marco Rubio, who is on the phone right now, listening to every single word that we say, and he's going to be great. And Pete, congratulations. And Scott, congratulations. I see you're here. And Caroline's been doing a great job. She's really probably talked about more than anybody here. She's done a fantastic job, and thank you very much, Caroline. We're proud of you. But we'll only be satisfied when all of these problems are solved, and we have the team to solve them, and that's going to happen. And it's going to happen, I think, very quickly. I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades, and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace, and we'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious.
So there you go. We will jump back in to that news conference when hopefully when Benjamin Netanyahu gets a chance to speak. Just worth pointing out that the Israeli Prime Minister has been the first foreign leader to visit Donald Trump. It seems that since his second inauguration, and it does seem like they have had between them a very positive conversation. And like I said, Benjamin Netanyahu yet to speak, but I'm sure he will. Donald Trump, the president, does like to set the picture out and thank everybody in the room. So he will get a chance to speak. Interesting, though, there he was talking again about the 1.8 million Palestinian people to be moved out of Gaza and that it will be rebuilt by neighbouring countries with a lot of money. I don't know if he's asked those neighbouring countries, but there you go. Sam, I'm afraid we have completely run out of time. I know you wanted to comment on that speech there. Sam Fowles, barrister and commentator. So yeah, just he's suggesting there that those people should be moved out of their country, and he's mentioned, of course, Egypt and Jordan being the two countries that could take them. They've expressed absolutely no interest whatsoever in taking those people, but he said that they will do it. What he means by that, We don't know. But that was the opening silo to the news conference there between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Right, coming up, you and I are going to be talking about cancer because today is World Cancer Day. I want to hear about your journey. Have you just started it? Are you in the middle of it? Or have you finished it?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a very good morning to you. I just want to take you back to that news conference. It is really significant, particularly to what's going to be happening in the Middle East. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu giving a joint formal news conference. The Israeli PM, the first foreign leader to visit Trump following his second inauguration, and they are chatting now. I'm going to send you back to Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu.
Iran nuclear deal. I remember we spoke about it. You said, this is the worst deal I've ever seen. I'm elected, I'm walking out of it. That's exactly what you did. And I think it speaks loudly for just common sense, just looking at things and seeing them as they are. And of course, you also brokered the groundbreaking Abraham Accords in which Israel made peace with 4 Arab states. We did this in 4 months. Nothing happened for a quarter of a century, but in 4 months, we were able, working together under your leadership, to have 4 historic peace accords. And now in the first days of your second term, you picked up right where you left off. Your leadership helped bring our hostages home, among them American citizens. You freed up munitions that have been withheld from Israel. They had been withheld from Israel in the midst of a 7-front war for our existence. And you just freed it. You ended unjust sanctions against law-abiding Israeli citizens. You boldly confronted the scourge of anti-Semitism. You stopped funding, as you just said, international organizations like UNRWA that support and fund terrorists. And today, you renewed the maximum pressure campaign against Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, all this in just 2 weeks. Can we imagine where we'll be in 4 years? I can. I know you can, Mr. President. For our part, we in Israel have been pretty busy too. Since the horrendous October 7th attack, we've been fighting our common enemies and changing the face of the Middle East. On that infamous day, Hamas monsters savagely murdered 1,200 innocent people, including more than 40 Americans. They beheaded men, they raped women, they burnt babies alive, and they took 251 people hostage to the dungeons of Gaza. And after this worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust, Iran and its henchmen in the Middle East were absolutely ecstatic. Haniya praised the massacre. Sinwar said that Israel was finished. Nasrallah boasted that Israel was, here's what he said, as feeble as a spider's web. Well, Mr. President, Haniya is gone. Sinwar is gone. Nasrallah is gone. We've devastated Hamas. We decimated Hezbollah. We destroyed Assad's remaining armaments. And we crippled Iran's air defenses. And in doing this, we've defeated some of America's worst enemies. We took out terrorists who were wanted for decades for shedding rivers of American blood, including the blood of 241 Marines murdered in Beirut. We accomplished all this with the indomitable spirit of our people and the boundless courage of our soldiers. The Bible says that the people of Israel shall rise like lions, and boy did we rise. Today, the roar of the Lion of Judah is heard loudly throughout the Middle East. Israel has never been stronger, and the Iran terror axis has never been weaker. But as we discussed, Mr. President, to secure our future and bring peace to our region, we have to finish the job. In Gaza, Israel has three goals: destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, secure the release of all of our hostages, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. I believe, Mr. President, that your willingness to puncture conventional thinking that has failed time and time and time again, your willingness to think outside the box with fresh ideas will help us achieve all these goals. And I've seen you do this many times. You cut to the chase. You see things others refuse to see. You say things others refuse to say. And after the jaws drop, people scratch their heads and they say, you know, he's right. And this is the kind of thinking that enabled us to bring the Abraham Accords. This is the kind of thinking that will reshape the Middle East and bring peace. We also see eye to eye on Iran. That's the same Iran. They tried to kill us both. They tried to kill you, Mr. President. They tried through their proxies to kill me. We're both committed to rolling back Iran's aggression in the region and ensuring that Iran never develops a nuclear weapon. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, Israel will end the war by winning the war. Israel's victory will be America's victory. We will not only win the war, working together, we will win the peace. With your leadership, Mr. President, and our partnership, I believe that we will forge a brilliant future for our region and bring our great alliance to even greater heights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, baby. Very nice. Thank you. And J.D. Vance, everybody. J.D., please.
So there you go. That was Benjamin Netanyahu's response in this press conference towards Donald Trump. Like I said, they clearly had a very good meeting between them. They seem to be on the same page. I don't know whether the people of Gaza will agree with the plans that they have for Gaza. and that is to empty it while they rebuild it. The fear, of course, for those people is that they will never be able to return. The 1.8 million people looking to be moved out of their land. Some people suggesting that that is the absolute definition of ethnic cleansing, but they're saying it's just to rebuild the area, and so those people can go back. There's now questions and answers from the press, but you get the gist. So there you go. That was Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Significant because it is significant to the Middle East. It is significant to what happens next there. Donald Trump today signing an executive order against Iran and suggesting that if anything happens to him in terms of him being killed by somebody from that state, then Iran will be annihilated. So he's saying he's hoping it doesn't have to be used, but he's left instructions, if that were to happen, that what happens to Iran. So it is important. What happens in the Middle East. It's important to all of us. So Israeli PM was the first foreign leader. He has to go back and fight his own election coming up, so he'll very much need Donald Trump's support in winning that. And after this visit, Trump is expected to host a string of other world leaders in the next week. But it is interesting that Benjamin Netanyahu was his first official foreign leader visit to the White House. I'm sure there'll be more details on that conference and what is being said in the news and throughout the day today. I'm going to take a quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Right. A show returns to normal now. It is now your phone in. We had to address that, breaking news. But I do want to talk to you about cancer. And I know it's one of those things that a lot of people, I mean, it used to be such a dirty word, didn't it? People were ashamed. There was shame attached to contracting cancer. I know certainly my father's generation, it was shameful. You didn't tell anybody you had cancer. A lot of people didn't understand cancer and thought somehow you could catch it. So there was a lot of shame. I mean, definitely back in the 60s and 70s of people who might have had cancer. There was also a great deal more fear because there was a great deal less information about cancer. There was also fewer treatment options. It seems excitingly that almost every day there appears to be a new, small but significant breakthrough in the treatment of these terrible diseases. And I say these terrible diseases because cancer isn't one disease. It's not like something else that you can just say, right, MS, for example, that is a disease in itself, right? We know what we don't know why people get it, but we know what happens with it. And MS has never been closer to a cure, thankfully, than it is today. Lots and lots of new things coming up for people with multiple sclerosis. And that is very exciting. But cancer is many diseases. It behaves in different ways according to different people. Your DNA, they've discovered, will have an impact on how the disease grows, on how the disease affects you, on how the disease spreads. There's brain cancers that behave in different ways from each other. There's lots of different cancers that behave in so many different ways that it really should be seen as a collective of diseases that go under the umbrella of cancer. And that's why it's been so difficult, if you like, to find a cover-all cure. That's why for some people chemotherapy might be the thing that can help them. It might be radiotherapy in other people. It might be both. It might be targeted. It might not be targeted. So there's lots of different options. I say options, you know what I mean. There's lots of different ways. So there's no longer shameful to have cancer. It is World Cancer Day, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, because people, I think the world is so busy, there's so much going on, there's so much news coming through all the time that we don't stop and think about what people might be going through. And that's what I do on this programme, and that's what I wanted to do. We've concentrated a lot on politics recently. But I just wanted to take a moment to pause and think about the thousands of people who have been told that they've got cancer. Just this week, 1,000 people a day are told in this country that they have cancer. The numbers are 350, 60,000 cases a year, every single day. Today, 1,000 people were told that they have cancer. And that is horrific. Just hearing those words, I'm sorry, you have cancer. And the thousands, millions of people in the past who have heard that. Some who have survived. Some who did not, like my dear friend Glenn. And every time there's a breakthrough, I always think, could that have been the one that saved him? If he'd just lived a bit longer, could that have saved him? Chances are probably not, because his cancer was found too late. So I wanted to pause and think about you and talk to you about your journey with cancer. It's got to be the worst thing you can ever hear. You know, when a girlfriend of mine goes for a breast exam, you just go, oh, don't worry about it, it's nothing. Just go and get it done, there's nothing to worry about. And then you hear that they have a lumpectomy, and you go, no, I'm sure it's fine. Sure, of course it's fine. And then you discover it isn't, and they've got to have a mastectomy. And the journey then starts of the fear that cancer not just gives to the person who's got the cancer, but a fear to everybody around them. I mean, after a friend of mine, and I've been a few, unfortunately, you go for your breast checks, right? You have that fear, not just for them, but for yourself and for all of your friends. And you nag them. I'm an absolute nagger of my girlfriends. Go and have your smear test. Go and have your breast checks. Just do it. And if you feel a lump, go to your GP, insist that it's checked. All of those things. Because we do know these days that if you go early enough, the chances are you'll survive. And the two close girlfriends of mine both survived their breast cancer because it was discovered early enough, because they were seen early enough. But look, I want to hear from you about your journey. Are you just beginning that journey? Are you one of the really desperately unlucky people who've heard today or yesterday or even in the last few months that you are starting a journey that you never wanted to take? Maybe it's somebody in your family. Maybe you're nagging somebody right now. Usually women to men saying, look, men can get breast cancer too. Go and get your prostate checked. Go and get this checked. Go and get that checked. It's important to do it. And even though people tell us that, oh, there's no GP appointments, it's terrible, the NHS, I think, is pretty good with cancer, from what I've seen. It can't cure everybody, it can't get everybody in fast enough, perhaps, but I think once you're in the bosom of the NHS, they look after you very well, and the treatments are there. And unlike the United States of America, we're not checking our bank accounts to see if we can afford it. If you need the help, you go and you get it. And simple as that, you don't get a bill at the end of it. So I want to hear from you. Has it been a journey of horrors? Has it been, what were social services like? What was your employer like? What were your family like? What were your friends like? I mean, when one of my friends went to see her oncologist, she was warned there and then that your marriage probably won't survive this by the oncologist. And she said, what are you talking about? And with a couple of months, the scumbag had left her. So this must be something that oncologists see a lot in order for them to have pointed that out to her. I mean, can you believe that? But anyway, so I want to hear from you. Give me a call. We can have joyful stories. I'd like to hear the whole gamut here this morning. 0344 499 1000. Of course, a charge at the national rate. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Got some great messages, actually. I'm going to talk to Michelle in just a moment, but I wanted to look at this because it's on my phone. Damn it. There we go. This is from Nick. And he said, this is because it's gone directly to my Twitter page. I refuse to call it X. Evening, Petrie. A year ago, I developed cancer requiring a total laryngectomy. That was last March. And I've been unable to speak since. I mean, they're fitting a speech valve this month, and I'm really excited. Surgeons are wonderful, and I'm so grateful, but it's been tough. And I've learned a lot about myself. Imagine not being able to speak for a year. I mean, you would learn a lot about yourself, wouldn't you? And you'd also learn a lot about your friends and everybody else around you. Nick, I wish you absolutely the best luck with that and the speech therapy afterwards. And when you feel ready, give me a call. I do have one of my callers who's had mouth cancer and had lots of surgery on his mouth, and he was a bit reluctant to call. But he did, and he was completely brilliant. So it's helped him with his confidence. So please do call when you can. Love to hear from you. Right, let's go to Michelle now, who is here in London. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Petra. Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I went through cancer 12 years ago. What happened was it was a cough, and I kept losing weight. Because I had a lot of trauma before, they kept treating me for depression, and it was only my dog that got really paranoid with me. And I kept saying to people, oh, he's got to have his nuts off, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then I went to the vet, and my partner explained it. We went to the vet 3 times. I got my coat on because I was so annoyed. And when I got to the vet, he said, it's not the dog, it's you. He said, you've got to go. He said to me, what the hell? He said, where's all the weight gone? And he took a blood test there and then, and he said to my partner, you've got to take her to hospital now. And then what happened was I ended up with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh, God.
I have never, ever heard of it. but I had it in my saliva gland, in my face.
Oh, my God. And your dog could smell it?
Yeah, and they had a picture of him because it was the first Macmillan hospital that opened in behind UCH. They couldn't believe it. He pinpointed it. And what happens is, right, life is life. And cancer has always been a dirty word. My parents died from it. It's always been with HIV. The tests I had to go through, because it's a blood cancer, well, they're saving your life, so you can take all the tests. But everything is demoralising. Nothing is, it's always, they look at you like you've done something wrong in your life.
I guess that's why people did feel shame from cancer, because often you would be, it's your own fault. You've got it because you smoked, or you've got it because you're overweight, or you've got it because your lifestyle choices. You've got it. So it's a disease where you are blamed for getting it in a way.
No, you're right. You are dead right, because that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I went through so much. Oh, Petra, I'm not being, like, sad or nothing, but do you know, all my friends and family left me. I was on my own. Nobody wanted to know. It was like they could catch it. It was really traumatising, but do you know what? I thought, do you know what? When you have cancer, something kicks in. It's like survival. You really don't know how strong you are, and everyone doesn't matter, but you really have to claw your way through. It is, but my parents died from it, so I've had the other side of being there and nursing them and everything, but when you get it, it is just your instinct. You have no idea how strong you are when it kicks in. And I did really well, but I've had loads of health issues, heart issues, kidney, liver, osteoporosis, rheumatoid, blah, blah, blah.
Is that because of the chemo?
Yeah, because
I was going to say,
what happens is it takes, basically, it takes 10 years off your life.
Yeah, it's the only cure that can kill you, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
one of those that they say, that's why they won't give it to older people, that's why they're very selective now with chemo, but they used to just blast everybody with it because it's the only tool they had.
Yeah, you've worded that perfectly, you really did. Because, like, and now I've got this and that and this and that. So now I have to go for bowel cancer and stomach cancer tests. And I have to be really honest. I have put these off for so long because I don't want it up there and down there. I've had enough. But I have to go through it. So, like just to get yourself through it. But when you go through it, it's like, well, I can't explain it. It's what's coming next. What's coming next?
But you've got cancer test this week, right?
Yeah, Thursday.
On Thursday.
Yeah.
When you go for that test, are you just expecting the worst?
Do you know what? When you go through this far, I know it sounds really strange, but because I'm quite a coward, but when you've clawed your way back to life and everything, it's like, oh, okay, bring it on. I feel like a little bit of Muhammad Ali or a bit of like, I don't know, like, what's his name? George Freeman. Like...
Didn't he make a toaster? Foreman.
Yeah.
Foreman, sandwich maker.
Yeah.
George Foreman.
Yeah,
That's it, wasn't it?
goodness.
Why are you laughing
You know
at me?
what? I've only had 2 cocos because I'm not allowed anything after 12 o'clock. I'm so lightweight, and I only had 1 sugar. But you know, your body kicks in.
Yeah.
It really does.
Well, it's that survival instinct.
You know what the letdown is?
Yeah.
It's people around you.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting to me. I think a lot of people don't know what to say to somebody with cancer. They don't know, it's embarrassing. They don't know how to help. So rather than actually stick around and say, what do you need me to do? They're sort of cowardly, right? They get embarrassed. They don't know what to say, do.
It's like they can catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's let me down. So I'm a great animal lover. So I do my bits for charity and things. But do you know what, Pets? I'm going to leave you with this. Nobody knows when you wake up in the morning what is round the corner, because you can be, and I was fit. I did kickboxing, I did Thai, I worked 14 hours a day, I've worked in the best shops in the world. I did. And do you know what? And I've got mental health, and the best thing for mental health is to get up and work. I don't know, when I was 30 years ago, my dad died suddenly. It was awful, but I went on antidepressants, and the doctors always said to you, never tell your boss what you're on. Never discuss mental health. And do you know what I did? I just kept getting promoted, and promoted. Because you need something to get up for.
Yeah, that makes sense. It completely makes sense. Listen, Michelle, good luck with your tests on Thursday. Do let us know how it all went. I hope everything's okay. But it's interesting to hear Michelle saying that her friends and family deserted her. And this is really more common than you would think. Like I said, my friend was told by the oncologist, your marriage probably won't survive this. Be ready for it to fall apart. Unbelievable. And it did. Months later, he left. So, right at the beginning of her treatment. I mean, what an absolute scumbag. But anyway, listen, I've got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment. It is World Cancer Day, and I'm hearing your stories about what it's like to get that news and the journey to hopefully get the all clear. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. It's Petrie here on Talk, and we're talking about World Cancer Day. And the reason we're talking about, not just because I think it's a day that we all know somebody who has either survived or died from cancer, but also because we so get bogged down, I think, in a lot of politics. I know that I certainly do, and it is good occasionally just to stop and think about the journey that other people are going through, to be empathetic, to hear the voices of people who've had the worst news possible, either about themselves or about their loved one, and having to tell your loved ones about this disease. I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about. My darling friend Glenn, who I've spoken about a lot, who died of bowel cancer, he when he rang me, he said, "You're my last call in terms of the people I'm telling." And I went, "But I thought I was your best mate. Why aren't I your first call?" And he said, "Because I knew you'd be the most difficult person to tell, because I knew that you would be the most upset." So I was I still am. Look at me, I could cry now, just remembering that conversation when he said that it's terminal and there's nothing that they can do now. And of course I fought with it. I fought with him. I told him he was lying. I told him he was all sorts of things, because I was scared, because I didn't want to lose him, and I did lose him eventually, in the most brutal way as well. But having to tell, I mean, listen, I suffer from extreme empathy, and I just imagine having to have that conversation with somebody the way that Glenn had to have that with me. And you know, all of the other people that he spoke to were probably quite sensible, and he knew I was going to be the one that actually was going to lose it, and I did lose it, which is probably not very helpful. But it's a journey that thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of people take in this country a year, and often they're hidden, often they're lonely, often family, friends, loved ones, partners desert them when they have cancer. So that's why I wanted to talk about it this morning, because we do need to remember that there are people going through some really bad stuff. While we're thinking, oh, you know, I can't afford to pay that and I can't afford to pay this, they would dream of having that as their main problem. And I know that doesn't help you if you're broke and you're worried about things, but occasionally it is good to cast outwards and see where other people are, and connect to them. And that's why I wanted to talk about this. I've got a few messages here. I'm going to, John, if you just bear with me for a second, I will be with you in just a second on the phones, but I have got some messages as well. It's from Carol. I heard you're talking about cancer. Unfortunately, my husband was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer in 2021 that had already spread to his bones. He hadn't had any symptoms. He got wonderful treatment. Within a week, he'd had various tests, scans, etc., and was started on chemo straight away. He picked up, but altogether he had 2 rounds of chemo, radiotherapy, an operation, and various medicines. Unfortunately, halfway through his 3rd round of chemo, his consultant phoned him and said that unfortunately the chemo wasn't working and they couldn't do any more. 4 months later, last April, he died, aged just 62, but the doctors were wonderful. I've made it my mission that whenever I come across someone, especially men, not just randomly in the street, but if I have to interact in some way, I make sure they know about getting tested for prostate cancer. And that's from Carol from Clacton. I'm so sorry for your loss, Carol. And you're right, I do the same thing. I mean, I do the same thing with my girlfriends as well. I'm a horrible nag when it comes to going to the doctor and getting checked out for things, and I do think a lot of men do need to hear it. And I know certainly of one man who was a viewer or a listener to this programme who his wife had been nagging him for ages to go and have a prostate cancer test. I nagged him and he went. His wife was livid, but she was pleased. And it came back clear. And he was absolutely convinced it wouldn't be, but it was. And it stopped all the worrying for him, for his family, for his adoring, nagging wife who felt that she just had to keep pushing him to go and get it done. So if you are listening to this, prostate cancer is now the most diagnosed cancer in this country. That was in the papers yesterday. However, if it's diagnosed early, and many men are now presenting early, if you've got any history of prostate cancer in your family, then go. From whatever age, just as soon as you get, to certainly 40s, 50s, whatever, go and see a doctor and get a check. It's literally crazy not to, because it is so easy to cure prostate cancer if it's caught early enough, and there's no excuse not to catch it early enough. So just dig around, ask your relatives, has there been prostate cancer in the family? Because it does tend to follow family lines. My father died from the disease, and my brothers now are absolutely on it, right? They go and get themselves checked. So it's really, really, really important that you do that. Anne has said, Petrie, I'm currently going through chemotherapy after breast cancer surgery. Mine was spotted during a routine breast screening procedure. I can't even imagine how terrifying that is. It's very scary because of the cancer type, but I can't fault the treatment at the North Tees Hospital. I have my second chemotherapy next week. Please urge all women to keep up with the screening appointments. You can still request one after 70 years old. All hours of the day. Oh, she said, talk all hours of the day has kept me entertained. Anne, I'm so pleased. That's Anne in Teesside. Yeah, I missed a screening, and I had to nag myself into going, because it's just like, I can't be bothered. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go, just get it done. And I did, and everything was fine. So it is worth doing it. So if you've missed a screening, just call your GP, tell them you've missed a screening. They're not going to shout at you. They'll just fit you into a breast clinic and go and get checked. And same goes for men. If you discover a lump in your chest, just get it checked. You can get breast cancer, and these things are easily solved if they're caught early enough. John is in West Lothian. John, sorry to keep you waiting. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking the call.
You're very welcome.
Just a very brief background as to how mine was discovered, because I had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. But I'd gone along to the local surgery for a CVS checkup, and you've got to take your urine sample, and the nurse...
That's the general checkup, isn't it, that you have every, 40 years, 60 years?
Cardiovascular thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
And annually, and you take along a urine sample, and the nurse spotted something in that she thought was not right, but said that, it's probably just a normal... infection, which is non-dangerous or anything else. But however, let's get it checked and let's take an extra blood sample, and we'll send it away for a PSA test.
Yeah.
And it came back as slightly above the normal. I saw my GP, who then was excellent and said, right, okay, well, I had a look at it, and he did the examination, which is not very nice for gentlemen.
Yeah. Women have lots of very not nice examinations.
I'm sure women have more than men.
Way more.
And then he said, well, let's wait a month and let's do another blood test and see what comes back, because it could be okay. It came back, and again, it was slightly high. He then sent me for an MRI scan, which came back and showed there was something there in the prostate. He then arranged for me to go and get biopsy done, which came back as there was something there. And I must say, the first, the frontline staff were absolutely excellent, absolutely superb. And then I saw an oncologist who it was a bit like your grandson talking to you. He was so young.
I know, that's when my mum used to say, when you're getting old, when the doctors and the police officers look young.
He looked very young, but absolutely first class. And my wife was with me, and he then confirmed that I had prostate cancer and took me through what stage it was at, which was caught very, very early, I've got to say, and gave me the various options, and then arranged for me to see a consultant surgeon who was also going to take me through the various things that could be done, whether it be chemotherapy, injections, or a full operation. And it was this, but the decision as to what happened was mine and mine alone after their advice. And it was decided that at this stage, the side effects would be worse than actually monitoring it. And
watch and see. They're saying that now with certain types of breast cancer, that the mistake has been on certain types of breast cancer that they've immediately operated, and that has created more problems, more stress, more fear, more worry than actually their wait and see policy. But I'd be terrified to wait and see.
Well, no, I mean, I think once that first word they say, you've got cancer, is just takes a moment or two to take in and whatever. But once you think about it and you listen, seriously to it, and I would always recommend, if you're going to go and see an oncologist or someone else, take somebody with you, because they will hear more than you hear, because you suddenly switch off almost, so listen carefully, get somebody with you, listen to it. My wife was with me, and after we met the surgeon, we decided that the best thing was just to leave it. And he said, once you're in the system, the problem is getting in the system, but once you're in the system, they will monitor you, they will do the checks, and at any stage you can change your what you want to do. And so I've from the National Health Service, from the first from the frontline people, I've got huge respect. What happens elsewhere upstairs and all the other things I'm not so convinced about, but it's not the end of the world. But the one thing that my frustration is, now that I've been diagnosed with it, is that there is not a screening program quick enough for men. And as the oncologist said, and he was quite apologetic when he said this, was that if you've got to get a cancer, this is the best one to get.
Yeah.
In the sense that it can be dealt with, it can be treated, it is not an end-of-life thing. It's not a death sentence as people used to think of it was. So,
but many men, if you don't mind me saying, John, because I can see your age there, but many men of your age have literally died from embarrassment.
Yes.
Because they haven't wanted to go and have the test that you were talking about. But nowadays, there is the PSA blood test as well. So that is the first stage, as it was with you. So there isn't any need for that test until later on. But a lot of men have died because they don't want to do that, and so they die of embarrassment.
Yes, that is a big problem. And the other thing is that there was no history of it in my family at all.
Wow.
And then I asked the oncologist about, because Sir Chris Hoy, as you probably know, champion athlete and all the rest of it, was diagnosed with it.
King Charles.
And Prince Charles. But Chris Hoy was in his 40s.
Yeah.
But there'd been a history of it in his family and had not been picked up. So, age is not necessarily the thing. Now, yes, I'm a crabby old man. and when I was talking to the surgeon, he said, so I asked direct questions, was, how long does it mean? What does it mean? He says, well, 5 years, probably at your age, nothing will happen. 10 years, it probably develop a little bit. In 15 years, yes, it probably will be serious. I said, oh God, I'm crabby enough at 75. What will I be by the time I get to 90? But the thing is that that early enough it can be treated. And the other thing is, and this is a message which probably should go out to a lot of people, was, and what he said was, if it's only, the younger you are, the faster it actually...
The faster cancer grows, which is, exactly. So once you get to be quite old, they're quite slow growing.
At my age, the chances are, he sees, and the other thing that he did say, which I think is quite important, was that a lot of men die with it, not because of it. But if you get it treated early enough, that's the solution. That is the thing, is to get diagnosed early, and therefore the risk to your life is pretty much nil. And so I'll probably die a crabby old man.
I hope so. In the arms of your lover and a bottle of scotch in one of those hands.
Pepper, the other thing I would say is that, I think you said earlier on in the programme, was that people are a little bit ashamed or this or that. But, this is one thing that there is nothing you can do to stop it happening. It's not like you've got liver cancer because you've drunk too much or whatever, which I may be guilty of, but I'm quite so that is not a problem at the moment. But it's the fact is that this is nothing that you can do, and it
can get anyone. We've seen it. The King, Princess Kate. These people got cancer, and it is nothing to be ashamed of. But it is so interesting that so many people still feel that way.
Yes, exactly. And I think that, I helped to run a seniors group in the village and things. So I talk about it because it's something that people should be made aware of, and comfortable with, and not ashamed to say, I'll go and get a test, I'll go and do this. And if you get it, it's not something that you have done, it's just the fact of life.
It's just, absolutely, and anybody can get it at any point. John, I think you're wonderful. May you live a very, very, very long and crabby life, and keep calling me. I've got to take a break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a good morning to you. We're discussing World Cancer Day, a day to pause, have a think about what people are going through. Maybe you're one of them, maybe you know somebody who's going through this, maybe you're somebody who's too scared to go and get checked up. which you definitely need to do. The mortality rate of cancer worldwide is 10 million deaths across the world. That was in 2020. Lung, bowel, liver and stomach are the most common causes of cancer death, accounting for 4 in 10 of all cancer deaths. So look, these things you've got to just go and check. Like you've seen in the adverts, if you're coughing and there's no explanation for that and you keep coughing for more than a couple of weeks, go and see a doctor. If you're losing weight, that is the first thing. First thing is a real indicator of some serious problems. If you're losing weight and you're not dieting, or you're not, suddenly increasing your activity levels, losing weight at a rapid rate is a terrible sign that something is wrong. It might not be cancer, but it's a sign that something's not right. So you go and see your doctor and you say, look, I've lost this weight in a very short period of time. What's going on? And if you're not satisfied with the answer you're getting from your doctor, ask to speak to another doctor. It's your life. If you think you're being fobbed off as being hysterical because maybe you're too young to have a lump in your breast that they should worry about, don't be fobbed off. It's your life. It doesn't matter to them, does it really, in a sense? So you just take responsibility for that and push forward. And for everybody who has screenings to go to, and it's mostly women, young and old, go to them. It's not my favourite day out, right? Every time I have to go to one or the other of those checks. It's not my idea of fun, but you know what is good? Peace of mind. And you go and you have your check and they tell you it's okay. 99.9% of the time it will be, but if it isn't, they can catch it early enough. So just take responsibility, I think. Just go and have it checked, everything. If you're a bloke, go and have all your stuff checked. If you're a female, go and have all your checked. And anywhere in between, just go and have it checked. Mark has said, my dad got diagnosed with bowel cancer after multiple trips to hospital. The first after a scan, they said it was his hernia. They missed the cancer. He died within a year at home with family. And my friend Glenn was treated for the wrong cancer initially, and that's what led to him dying. Tony said, both my parents had cancer at the same time. They went to chemo together, both died, and 10 years later I still well up when I think of them. But my point is that this brought a lot of family closer together, and that was wonderful. Lots of hatchets were buried and the grandchildren all met and are now an extended family in their own right. Out of a horrid situation, we wound up with a lovely, caring family. And then he says, cancer is crap. Yeah, it is. Let's speak to Ben, who's in Stanwell. Ben, good morning to you. Last call goes to you.
Hiya.
Hiya.
I spoke to you recently about my tax credits, but anyway, I lost my mum when I was 16.
Oh, that is rough.
Yeah, she's only 34. It's a bit of a long story, but anyway, she tried to hide it a little bit, but I remember hearing conversations. She had found a lump in her neck, talking to friends, and basically it turned out it was Hodgkin's disease.
Right.
Had an operation.
Hodgkin's lymphoma, isn't it? Was it?
It was in a neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't work out hereditary. But anyway, I remember walking into the bathroom, not knowing she was there, and just seeing the big scar, and having chemo and injections.
And she tried to save you from it by not telling you, basically.
Yeah. But then it relapsed, and then she went back into hospital. But like you're saying, when men, it's my stepdad, and when she was in hospital, it's quite hard, but
I know. Did he leave her?
Well, no, he didn't leave her, but after she died, well, I remember coming home from work, and my step-granddad looking at me, and I just knew in his eyes, he was like, she's going. But then finding out that stepdad was having an affair while she was dying in hospital. You know what I mean? But it's still
scumbag. Boris Johnson was with what's his name, a wife, while his wife was going through cancer treatment.
Yeah, my mum, but my stepdad was. I found out was having an affair while she was dying in hospital, and that just really, affects me even more. But it was a stigma where, because I was that age, and I remember being on a bus going to a pub with